And welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Frank Tomaino is our guest. Frank wears many hats, as long as it involves history, that is. And Frank is on the board at the Utica County History Center. He continues to write his column for the Observer Dispatch on history. He is author of History Just for the Fun of It. And he continues to come in and grace us with his presence from time to time. Frank, just recently, the President of the United States was here, and there was a lot of talk about he was the first president, sitting president since Harry Truman.
Since Harry Truman.
To be here. Yeah. But there have been a lot of presidents that have been to Utica, or what would become Utica, some of them sitting, some of them not. Lots of connections with presidents in our area.
A lot of future presidents were here during campaigning for themselves or for other other candidates. And we had one former president who spent a lot of time in Utica, Benjamin Harrison, who had a camp on Second Lake and would spend a lot of time in Utica. I came across a small article years ago in the Utica Observer that he and his wife Mary, the former president Benjamin Harrison, had gone to J.B. Wells and bought some furniture for their camp. A little article, but it's things like that that make history fun.
And for those who aren't familiar, old enough to know where J.B. Wells was.
Well, at the beginning it was on Lower Genesee Street, but most of us remember it when it was on Genesee and Devereaux. J.B. Wells had half the building, and Neisner's Five and Dime had the other half. But J.B. Wells, 5 stories, very popular department store.
Right up from where Grace Church is.
Right, well, right next to Grace Church, just south of Grace Church,
The first, well, he wasn't president at the time, but the first person who would go on to become president, George Washington, he came through here, right?
George was the first, 1783, 6 years before he became president, right after, well, the year that the Revolutionary War ended. And he wanted to visit the site of the Battle of Oriskany, which tells me he realized how important that battle was. Historians ignored it for many years. Now they're finally coming around. But he wanted to visit the site of the Battle of Oriskany, and he came here with Governor George Clinton of New York, and they ended up buying property here. I think he bought 2,000 or 3,000 acres in the town of New Hartford, town of Kirkland.
Somewhere along like where Route 233 runs,
233, right, also around Higbee Road in New Hartford. And I think he sold it 3 or 4 years later, made a profit. But he was never here as sitting president, but he did spend time here. And so he knew about the area.
Yeah. The presidents in olden days, who would be next in line that came here, either as president or future president or past president?
The first sitting president would be Andrew Johnson, but before him,
well, let's talk about
the connections, the ties. Yeah. John Adams,
who
was our second president.
Right. What brought him here, Frank?
What?
What brought Adams here?
Well, his granddaughter lived in Utica, believe it or not. John Adams, our second president, his granddaughter lived in Utica, had married Alex Johnson, and they had a...
he was a banker, wasn't he?
He was a banker, linguist, he was an author, very talented guy. And he built a mansion where the bank with the gold dome is, when the Savings Bank built their bank. And his wife was Abigail, married Abigail Adams, who was John Adams' granddaughter and John Quincy Adams' niece. So that tie, as far as I know, Adams never visited here. John Quincy Adams, the problem with, you read some of those old history books, in fact, Andrew Johnson's visit here as a sitting president, as far as I know, was never mentioned in any.
Why is that, do you think, Frank?
I don't know. They just didn't. They ignored women, and I don't know, but they just ignored. I came across the Andrew Johnson when I was writing my column on the Civil War, then the Reconstruction era. That he stopped. He was battling the radical Republicans in Congress, and he stopped there and he spoke for 30 minutes. So it wasn't just at the railroad station saying a few words and leaving. But he spoke 30 minutes.
Was it at the railroad station?
It was right next door to where Union Station is today, about where the Children's Museum is today.
Was that the forerunner of today's Union Station?
Oh yeah, there were 3 railroad depots, and the Union Station is the last one, but this was the second depot would be, always in the same spot though, on Main Street. You know.
And of course, Abraham Lincoln was not here as president, but he was here on the way to Washington to become president.
Yeah, it's February 1861 on his way to inauguration. You know, I was doing a little research the other day, and it was interesting that on his way, left Springfield, on his way to Washington, Albert or Allen Pinkerton was a detective for the Ohio and Baltimore Railroad, and he discovered that there was a plot to assassinate Lincoln in Baltimore. And Lincoln stopped in Utica February 18th, so he knew about this. So as he was giving these talks on his way to his inauguration, he knew that they were out to kill him before you know, he was sworn in as president. And because of it, he didn't stop in Baltimore. They went right to Washington, and he really had to sneak off the train. They put him in disguise. He didn't wear his big top hat, and he was undercover for 2 or 3 days. The president-elect. Yeah. And when he was in Utica giving his talk, he did stop in Utica. I think it was February 18th, and at the railroad station, they set up a platform, and there were thousands of people there, including, I think you wrote about this, the entire senior class at Hamilton College and others. And he gave a short talk, and then he went on his way. But to me, you know, he knew that there was a plot to kill him. Yeah. You know, isn't that something? You know? When he was
in Utica, they had an interesting a way of doing it. What they would call his advance team today said to all the local politicians, I think Ward Hunt was there, I forget who else was there, you can speak as long as you want, as many of you as want it, but it's got to be after the president, because he got out on a railroad car that they pushed up to his car, a flatbed car, gave his talk, and then he was gone.
Yeah.
So
I think there was his train. It was 3 cars painted yellow.
Yeah, yeah.
They were yellow cars.
Yeah, yeah.
So now I don't know if he stopped in Little Falls, but he made a lot of stops.
He stopped in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Yeah,
he made
and
a lot of stops.
I'm not sure about Little Falls either.
But what must have been going through his mind, knowing that they were out to kill him? Wow. You know.
We're going to take a short break. Frank Tomaino is our guest. We're talking local history. We'll be right back.